Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Happiest CEO Podcast. We actually just renamed ourselves because that was just way more fitting. Really excited to have you here. I'm with Joel Olson, who has an amazing story and journey to tell, but also has really, really deep knowledge over the last 20, 25 years in myofascia and related myofascia.
Yeah, myofascia, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so blessed that you actually live in the area as well.
That's it. And it's such a privilege to be sitting with you today for someone who has also, utilized your products for many years.
Oh, true.
Being the Clear Light saunas and now just recently the Healthy Earth Bar. So
exciting.
Thank you for your amazing initiative in engineering.
Reciprocity. Yeah, no, I feel really blessed to have time with you now and can ask you all the questions I always wanted to know about you. Well, also about the journey of actually getting into such a subtle field, or it's such a vast field, if you like, because it's not something that I think most people have heard about, right? Would you say?
Yeah. So I guess myotherapy is the job title, or myotherapist.
Thank you.
It was a course that was sort of came out of Victoria, so that was part of the reason that the depth of it across, particularly in Australia, was sort of narrowed a little bit because other states weren't offering it as a course. So particularly when I moved from Melbourne up to the Northern Rivers, there was a real education part as to letting people know what myotherapy was, or what a myotherapist was.
Yeah.
And how that kind of differed from, osteopathy or physiotherapy or even remedial massage to a certain degree, even though there's a lot of sort of similarities and overlap with how we practice. But yeah, I've been treating as a myotherapist now for just over 18 years full time.
Yes.
And I actually put a little Instagram post up the other day saying, I've now done, over 20,000 appointments in that time. So there's a lot of repetition, a lot of learning, and a lot of evolving that goes on with that. I think as a kid, I was always very tactile. So my mum would have dinner parties, and often I'd be, massaging someone's shoulders, not without some remuneration for $2 or something like that. Or, back in the day when the foot spas were a thing, someone would have a foot spa and 50 cents or $2, I give them a little foot massage. And I just innately kind of did that. So I feel like I've always sort of had this sense of wanting to be tactile and touch, and also helping people has been something that's sort of, I guess, been at the core of me for a long time, which is, I guess, part of the reason why, 18, 20 years of doing what I'm doing, I still, I say this all the time, I'm like, I absolutely love what I do. Which I think, in this day and age, it can be quite rare for people to say that they still love their job so deeply, for such a long duration of time. Yeah.
I always think about sort of the traditional sort of medical system that is out there. That's a very logical sort of like, if then I can see this, therefore it could be this or that. And I guess the main instrument that these practitioners use is their brains, right? Like just basically like the, perception to a certain degree. But when you come into the field that is more traditional or is just wider in scope, you use your body a lot to get information, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just the logic of interviewing and finding out what's going on privately.
Yeah,
people, right?
yeah, exactly. I actually remember at university, we did this amazing drill. We had this practitioner who has since passed, but Tony Monaghan, her name was. And she used to get us to pluck a strand of our hair out, and we used to put it under an A4 piece of paper. We had to close our eyes, and we had to locate where that piece of hair was under the paper, just using the touch. And what she was really teaching us there was to build up that sensoriness within our fingers. So often people say to me, "Oh, how did you know to go there? Or how did you feel that?" And sometimes I say, I don't actually know how to describe it anymore because it's just so second nature to me. But yeah, there's a lot that, often I'll sort of place my hands on someone when I start with them, after we've had a little bit of a conversation, and all of a sudden you just start getting this kind of sensory download of going, okay, yep, I can feel that there's that tension pulling there, or where I thought there might have been tension, actually the tone of that tissue feels quite weak. So there's a lot of feedback that you are getting in that real time. But you also see it as soon as someone walks in. You can just see the way they're holding themselves, their posture, the way they're breathing. Yes. I have a driveway that people often walk down. And if I'm downstairs and you just start watching the way that they're walking into the
Wow.
clinic, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can see there's some things going on here that we need to address. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So would you say that if you have a particular, if you have a patient that there is a healthy field for the tissue, for example, or would you say that for some people the healthy tissue is firmer and is less stressful feeling than others, or would you say I know what a healthy body actually feels like, and there's quite a common ground what is
Yeah,
normal?
look, I think we're all, very different and unique beings, but I think there is definitely that kind of, I guess, acceptable sort of tension or acceptable ranges or levels that you can feel within someone. So there is definitely that, I think, that window of where okay, yep, this is feeling quite good on someone. Where I think the sort of the swing and the drivers can be, it's like, okay, is this driven, or this tension driven more through repetition and function, or is it actually being driven more through stress and breathing,
Yeah.
and some potentially some other dysregulations that are kind of going on, in lifestyle, or even the way their emotional state is as well. And I guess that's actually what I really like about the work that I do too, because it's so individualized. So it's not like, booking into a spa where they've got their, sequence of flow and they follow their little A4 piece
Yeah.
of paper, as therapeutic and nice as that can feel.
Yeah.
Whereas where I really get to is get to connecting to everyone so uniquely and so different. And, like we were chatting before, the show too, it's, you just develop the skill more and more and more and more. And, there's a lot of clients that I sort of see every 3 or 4 weeks for their, monthly tune up, if we would want to call it that. That's just something that they prioritize as part of their health matrix. But I can put my hands on that person and go, oh yeah, great. That feels really improved, or way different to what it did last session.
Wow.
I can't always explain how that kind of happens, but it's just something that comes to me through that sort of circle of touch. And so you kind of have this encyclopedia of how different people's bodies feels and fascia. Even though that's treating hundreds of people a year, I can do that, and I can put my hands on someone that I haven't touched for 4 or 5 months and still have that memory of what the tissue felt like last time.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So what type of people would come to you with what type of issues?
It's a really diverse range of people, and I think that's part of the reason I also love private practice a lot too. Like I went down a bit of a sporting realm there earlier on in my career, but what I love most about private practice is that you get to have such a diverse range. So I treat elderly people, up to 80 plus. Then I've got younger kids that come and see me for certain things. So it really varies, and it can be sporting injuries, it can be headaches and migraines, it can be stress-related things, it can be overuse injuries, it can be acute injuries from post sort of motor vehicle accidents, or so there's really there's no kind of set narrowed range of what I look at. But I'm also really mindful of that when I have people come in and we go through our questionnaire, if it's something that I don't feel is in my capability or my scope of practice, then like I was saying earlier, that I'm all about collaboration over competition. So I sort of have this amazing network of other practitioners that I can refer off to, or say, hey, you know what, actually I think the conjunction of the two of us practitioners working together is going to kind of best serve you.
Can you say overuse injuries? Overuse of drugs?
No, overuse of particular repetitional motion. So for someone like me who does a lot of repetition or a lot of strokes, so that could be something that's an RSI, repetitive strain, of a particular area. Overuse of people sitting at computers and keyboards and things like that, so they can kind of create different pathways of tension that can kind of lock up and allow or sort of not allow the correct alignment of those joints and tissues and the fascia as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about some anecdotal sort of stories that I've heard where people, went to someone like you, but actually just try to to use something very different to get to a result. And I guess my question, I try to formulate this question here, is basically who would actually really benefit from going to you, but it's not second nature. So if I'm a sports person, that makes sense. We're talking about muscles, tissues, meridians, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether actually, if people would know that even though it's not body as such that the issue stems from, it would be really valuable to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one to answer because I think that I mean, yes, I'm a myotherapist and yes, I've done, my studies in that. But as we as practitioners also have coaches or mentors or other people that we've worked with, you tend to have this ability to go, oh yeah, I really like that, or I had a great treatment myself with this person when I was overseas, and I really like the way that they approach that. So you kind of get to like take these little elements and then sort of build that into the way you practice. I think the shorter answer is that we can all benefit from tissue work.
Right.
Yep, everyone can benefit from
Yeah.
it, whether or not it's emotional or it's physical. I think that the power of touch is profound in what shifts we can create
Yeah.
in people's bodies. And I sort of mentioned to you earlier too about, I'm quite a firm and deep tissue practitioner. So often I get referred from people say, hey, go and see Joel. He'll really just, he'll hammer you and things like that. And I definitely do treat a lot like that, but I also make sure that I tailor it to what those, those specific needs of that person are. And sometimes, yes, there are some elements where we really get into it, but other times it's the more subtle touch, or it's actually working on, diaphragm or the mechanics of their breathing that then releases a lot of the tension out of their neck that they may have been and seen X, Y, and Z practitioner that have taken more of this localized approach, as opposed to kind of looking at things in a little bit more of a whole. But also looking at, is there some emotional stuff involved in it? Is there some breathing stuff involved in it? How are their hips kind of moving in space?
I I like the term maintenance when you use that, because I think what people find is if they take their car into the into the mechanic, sometimes the mechanic finds something doing maintenance checks that would have gone really wrong, or is happening there. And if I spin this a little bit further, coming back to the question before, people might see I have more arguments than normal, or I'm more irritated than normal. That has nothing to do with the body, strictly speaking, like, with the physical body to start with. But what I suspect, and I've certainly seen for myself, is that sort of more mental, emotional side of thing, you go for a maintenance session and something already shows maybe a little bit up in the body, but what it then unlocks is actually, why have I got this, this way in my life at the moment, right?
Yeah, sure. I see this a lot because I do have a lot of regulars. So, and sometimes I get this sort of thing where it's like, I sort of thought about canceling this month because like I'm feeling pretty good, and I thought maybe I'd postpone it and didn't feel like I need it, but they still come in and have that session. And then it's after they've had that session, they're like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't cancel that. Like I feel so much better. I feel calmer. And it's sometimes we don't even kind of realize those little shifts or changes that we need within us until we actually have those shift or changes that are kind of facilitated by someone who's able to help with that we think, yeah, wow, actually that was really beneficial. And I get, I don't share a lot of testimonials or text messages from clients, but I do get that a lot, where people will text me that afternoon or the next day and say, wow, I just had the most amazing sleep, or I actually didn't realize that, I was running at about a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 in terms of, anxiousness or maybe a little bit of overwhelm. And today I just feel light and I feel like a 2 out of 10. So, sometimes we're not even consciously aware of kind of where we're wound up to until someone can kind of help facilitate that process of where that nervous system kind of drops. And then all of a sudden it's like we're calmer at home, or we didn't snap, or we have the ability to flow and move more freely because our nervous system is in, a better state.
Yeah, that's a very profound spectrum that you really work on.
Yeah.
How did you feel inspired to go into this particular line of work?
This particular line of work, yeah. Well, I think I always loved working with people.
Sure.
And I'd always, really enjoyed using my hands. I used to love doing woodwork at school, but I laugh at that now because I'm the most unhandyman handyman. But yeah, like I said, I've always been really tactile and always really enjoyed working with people. So I think I sort of discovered the course really by chance. I'd went and seen a careers counselor at school and talked about maybe what I wanted to do. And she said, "Oh, okay, I think that sounds like physiotherapy."
Okay.
And asked me, what I thought my potential, I think we used to call it like the score was, or the enter score that you would get from school. And it was quite high for physio. I didn't think that mine had the capacity to be that high. So she's like, "Oh, okay, well, you better look for something else." So I went and sort of explored some open days, and I came across myotherapy, and I think I was 17 at the time, and I sort of watched some students doing some practical work. I thought, okay, hey, this looks interesting. It looks similar to physio. Maybe I'll just have a go at that and see what happens. And then I'd sort of, as I was studying, I was lucky enough to be mentored by a practitioner by the name of John Cookus, who's the Greek Chinese medicine man in Melbourne. And he was an amazing mentor, and I sort of followed through with my course, and I thought, oh, maybe I want to do Chinese medicine. And he said to me, why don't you just spend the next, 5 years becoming the best myotherapist that you can be? Like, really focus in and really, upskill what you've already learned and see where you go from there. And that was the best advice I was given, because nearly 20 years later, and I feel like I'm really thriving, and I've had some great, career highs with what I do. And like I said, I still absolutely love being a practitioner, day in, day out. So I feel very privileged.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where did it stem from? Did it come from a more traditional line of therapy?
So it was sort of a continuation of remedial massage. So a lot of what we do, there is some similarities for how we treat. And then there was sort of we use a lot of what they call the trigger point theory. So there's sort of trigger points, or a network of points that sit within all of our tissues. And it was really about, utilizing certain pressures or techniques to release these points, which would then create a change within the tissue length, and then allow, joints to kind of, I guess I use the word like joint centration. So allow the joint and position to, create a better biomechanical position because of what you've been able to change at that kind of tissue level without actually manipulating the joint. You've just been able to change the tissues, and then that's allowed it to take a better position.
That is fascinating. If I think about all the hip replacements that are happening, I mean, my parents are sort of in that age, and it's just something that they just accept has to happen.
Yeah.
Might as well get it done now.
Yeah.
At one stage it has to be happening.
Yeah.
And if I think about other alternatives to that, there are many reasons, and
Yeah,
sometimes,
sure.
of course, there's a point of doing that, but there's
Yeah.
also actually other solutions that might actually be much more helpful, because the tissue will not relax just because you suddenly have an artificial hip, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, and also, even when you have those particular surgeries and that, there's still a process of, rehabilitation and some strength and conditioning that comes into it, and tissue work. So for example, I think it was a couple of months ago, I was up at my parents' house, and my dad was sort of complaining of a lot of tension within his hip. And I just had a little bit of a look at things, and I thought, actually, you know what, he's really limited in how his ankle is moving at the moment. So I got my thumb and I just ripped into these ligaments that are in the ankle. So we really improved his ability to what we call dorsiflex in the ankle. And he got up and walked around, and the discomfort or the irritation that's been really tugging in his hip had just completely gone. So for him, that was like, oh, well, that's magic, but you didn't even touch my hip. And that's what I was sort of talking about with it's often like finding where these, mechanical issues can actually be stemming from. So more of, we use the term a lot, like that root cause.
Yeah.
And then sort of seeing what other things that's potentially wreaking havoc on.
So the word myo relates to myofascia, right?
Yeah. So myo meaning muscle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the connection is really is absolute, isn't it? Like you basically have one connection up all the way in the neck that goes all the way to the...
Yeah. So there's with fascia being a connective tissue, there is superficial fascia, there's deep fascia, and then there's also like visceral fascia, which is sort of interconnected with our organs. There is an amazing book called Anatomy Trains. I think it's Robert Myers who's the author of that. And he sort of dissected this book is an amazing. It's like the encyclopedia of fascia. Anyone that's sort of done a lot of work in fascia will definitely know this book and probably have notes all over it. But when you sort of look at the diagrams that he kind of uses in this, and if you were to say effectively use like a scalpel and you were to start in the bottom of the foot at a particular point within the fascia, you could actually run that same connective fascial line, all the way up to the top of the head or the jaw or something like that. So what that's really representing is that it is all connected in some way. There are these pathways. So, and that's why when we sort of treat along those pathways, we can create bigger systemic effects within the body, as opposed to just accessing at the head or just at the shoulder. We can create change in those positions from either working into the hip or pelvic floor or ankle or foot even.
Gotcha. That's quite a reflection, I guess, also of how people start to create a wider conscious of many things, like more the system thinking. Like, rather than I have a headache, something's wrong with the head, therefore I need a painkiller, versus I have a headache and there are many reasons why the head might hurt and it can stem from somewhere very differently. I would probably argue that some 100 years ago that would be not common to think like that, simply because the world was really Newtonian, sort of like really isolated cause and effect, and it would be in one area, so they would only focus on the head, right?
Yeah. And I think I feel like breath work and things like that have become such a huge thing, in the last few years. And I think that the breath is so powerful because when our breathing mechanics are working more optimally, it's like every function within our body actually works more efficiently. So I guess with that, it's like if we can balance off, a certain area, then other areas that may rely on that area being in balance, it's sort of, I guess, or like homeostasis is that word too, like creating that balance within the system so that we can function more optimally. I mean, really, I feel like optimization is such a used word at the moment. Like everyone wants to feel more optimized and function better and think clear and move more freely.
And when I think about the term lifespan versus health span, health span has a lot to do with optimization. Like what I perceive as healthy is like optimal, and I want to keep this optimization way longer than prior to. It's like, oh, I just want to, turn 90 or 100 or something like that. But there was not the talk of like, and I want to be really healthy as well, or not as much.
There was, I think it was Peter Attia's book. I think from memory, that's called Outlive. Outlive, yeah. And he has this amazing diagram in that where he has this line that has the lifespan, and then it obviously dips. And then he has the health span underneath it. And it's like, well, ideally we want the health span trajectory line being as close and tugged in tight to that curve at the end, as opposed to this, like, well, my lifespan went to 90, but my health span dived off the cliff at 50. And then we're not really optimizing the back end of that.
When you talk about the lungs, what I'm thinking also is we just discussed that, the fascia probably sort of constricts maybe also the breathing. And then on the other hand, the breath could also sort of stretch that out. So I guess it has this effect, like if you breathe well, it might also keep other parts of the body intact better than,
absolutely. And often, if I'm working on someone and there is a really tight area, our natural reaction is to often and to kind of hold the breath. So I'll always kind of either just back the pressure off a little bit and really get them to connect back in with that breath, because I might be facilitating the touch, but it's actually them taking more control of that breath and the consciousness around that breath that then is actually allowing that tissue to like go and expand.
And then if you go further upstream, it could be stress at work or just in general stress, being busy and so on. That changes your breath and therefore changes all your whole body functions.
And, we live in a world with so many choices and possibilities and that, but it's also, I think as a species, it's made us a lot busier and rushing and doing these things. So often, myself included, sometimes we can get into these states where we are operating in that sort of more sympathetic state, as opposed to having a little bit more balance throughout the day, where we can kind of have that time where we go, okay, I'm really up here at the moment. Let's use a little bit of breath, or even not just using the breath, but even just using some touch to kind of create some change in the tone of the tissue. And then that can give us that feedback to our breath and to our brain to actually just allow us to, to drop in a little bit more and calm down. And then that can just change, it can change the postures of that as well. And I think just movement is key. Our body loves to move. We're designed to move. We're not designed to sit here all day.
It's so fascinating to see sort of where society heads of like everyone is busy, like whether you work or not, whether you have kids or not, it doesn't actually matter. Like everyone is just really busy because there's so many opportunities to do, whether it's consuming content, whether so much is on our fingertips nowadays.
Yeah.
And I guess it really asks for a balance there of doing more maintenance that, I don't know, looking at my parents' generation again, they would not have thought to just go somewhere to have a little bit of relief or something. It's like, well, do I really need to go to the doctor now? But their lifestyle was so different, and they would garden and would do that every week or something like that, and therefore they had the release of our connection with nature, whatever have you. There was certainly a more balanced approach because the external influence has been much higher now than it used to be.
Right? And I think that's also another part of what I really love doing is I love to educate clients as well, like either using fascial release balls or rollers or bands and things like that too. So it's like, okay, let's work on this in here, but also let me show you some of these positions or techniques that we're using so that you now have this toolkit to utilize outside between our sessions. And then if you feel these certain things arise, like just have a little go at accessing into this and seeing if that can change the symptom of what you're actually getting. And I think also that's probably why I'm quite booked in advance, because people really feel the benefits of having that maintenance. So probably 80% of the clientele that I see week to week are really regular, maintenance based style of clients. And then the other bit sort of made up of new clients and acute injuries and that as well.
Yeah. And I sometimes find that people feel they can't really justify this type of investment of time and money. And for me, that I don't know if I've ever had this view, but I certainly know that right now I can see that this is a part of insurance, because in a way, if you can tackle something early or be just aware of it, you can correct it before it becomes a really major issue. But also as you function more and feel good within yourself, stress levels drop and so on, you're just more able to actually live a good life. And like in my position, sort of, it's leadership. So being the best version of myself to start with is really, really important to actually make good decisions, to communicate really well and all those things. And I would say, if it wouldn't be for me doing certain things that are not acute, but, good maintenance, I don't think I would be the same leader that I am.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think, you really do have to kind of live and breathe what you are, educating to people to. And I think people see that as well. If you can really lead from a position of someone who's practicing what they're doing, I think it's, people can just sort of absorb it better off you as well too.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and they can see the passion that you have behind it and whatnot.
And I think most people can be passionate about, everyone can be passionate about something, but there's something to be said if you're just overwhelmed by either your body not functioning, you have pain, or you're just restricted, or you're just absolutely stressed. Right? And the fascinating thing is people would probably come to you, 100% come to you, and you would work on their body, but their stress level, their mental stress level also goes perfectly down.
Yeah.
They can, go back to work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, talking about like stress, I think that, there's a certain level of stress that I've kind of had on my body, being a body worker. So I've really had to dial in like my nutrition, my sleep, my movement, and be really conscious around, the choices I make with that, because I want to continue to be a practitioner for another, 20 odd years. But in order to have the ability to have that duration in that role, those things need to kind of continue to upregulate for me. And then it was about probably 12 months ago, that's what sort of led me into the whole, water side of things, because it was just another pillar of my health that I wanted to, dive into and understand a little bit more. I think it was probably 3 years ago now, I'd done a sort of a performance workshop with a guy, Taylor Cecil, who's up on the Gold Coast at a place called Native State. If you haven't been there, amazing bathhouse to
Cool.
check out. Yeah. And one of the pillars within that, which was sort of a stem off from Paul Check's work, was hydration. And it was something that, I knew about. I felt like I was drinking, adequate water. I was drinking filtered water. So I felt like I was sort of making the right choices. But it wasn't until I started to sort of, learn a little bit more around that it's like, okay, how can I, improve the quality of water I'm drinking? And also, how does that, potentially help me with my health and my longevity as a practitioner? But it also it fell into a time where I guess I probably had periodic periods of a bit of burnout as a practitioner, just from the repetition of treating. So as I was sort of exploring the water, it was like, oh, actually, there's an ability here to kind of add another arm into my business, as well as sort of the education side of things on helping people. And obviously, hydration plays such a huge role in our fascia as well. So there was like another tick for me there. And it was also about, I guess, like creating some diversity that was still really aligned with what I was doing in the health side of things, but gave me, a product and something else to leverage other than just, I guess, a time for money exchange with patients.
Can you feel whether someone is hydrated or not in there?
Absolutely.
You can feel liquid in the person, right?
It's not necessarily liquid.
Okay.
It's more in like the tone of how that tissue comes in,
Yes.
for sure. So, Jason Gilbert, who I know you're also really familiar with as well. Jace is amazing. He's in Lennox Head. And him and I have started doing a lot of testing around hydrogen water, so molecular hydrogen rich water. And we've been doing that under live blood analysis. So we've been, testing people's blood, having a look at, what the level of hydration looks like in those samples. And then we then use this molecular hydrogen rich water, or we use what we call the Kangen water from a Japanese system. We give them 2 to 3 glasses of the water. About 20 to 30 minutes later, we retest the blood and we just see a stark difference in what their blood is looking like. So we see it initially, that dehydrated blood is very sort of stuck together and coagulated and not having a huge amount of ability to exchange oxygen and CO2. And it's very a bit sluggish and slow. So that can be a representation for someone as being a bit foggy headed, feeling really stiff. And then they have this experience with the water, and then we retest it and we see the red blood cells are, there's a better shape in them. There's larger spacing. So they've got more ability to exchange oxygen and CO2. The rate of the way the red blood cells are moving within the plasma, sort of, Jason often used the reference of it looks like, salmon swimming upstream. And that's just, there's a lot of charge within that as well. So what we're seeing is that if we can create this through, increasing the quality of water that people are drinking, then that also, again, like we talked about the systems approach, like it actually has the ability to have a greater effect on all the systems within our body. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So is it the pH mostly, or is there much to it?
It's the molecular hydrogen is really where the real powerhouse is. So that's this like amazing kind of miracle molecule, I guess you'd call it. There is a guy, Jamie LeBron. I think his Instagram is like H2 minutes. And he's, really dived into a lot of the power of molecular hydrogen. He recently just did a podcast with Paul Saladino on that. So if you want to sort of dive in and learn a little bit more around that, that's definitely one I would recommend to have a listen to. But it's also the systems that we use actually puts a charge in the water. So it uses electrolysis or electrolyzed reduced water. And what that charge does is it actually energizes the cells. So when we have a greater ability to exchange oxygen and CO2 within the red blood cells and the cells within the body, we see a decrease in inflammation. It's antioxidant rich. So that sort of, I guess, like free radical scavengers. And where molecular hydrogen is really powerful is it actually has this ability to, I guess, decipher between good and bad. So it's almost a bit adaptogenic in the sense that it can enter into the system really quickly. And then it sort of decides what it needs to either downregulate or upregulate or attack and get rid of, which is like, it's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That is unreal technology.
Yeah. And I guess, I've sort of been drinking the water now for, a touch over 12 months. And I think the thing I noticed the most was my level of hydration really went up. So being a practitioner, I guess sweating to a certain degree, utilizing a lot of energy throughout the day. And my patients can attest to this. Every time I go and get a little pump of oil, I'm always like sipping on my drink bottle. And I used to find that I would probably drink, 5 to 6 of my Yeti bottles. Let's say they're 750, probably not quite a liter,
4 liters.
but I was drinking, quite a lot of water.
Yeah.
And then since I kind of shifted to the hydrogen rich water, some days I'll only drink 2 liters, but I feel way more hydrated. And I'm also peeing less in between clients and stuff too. So for me, that was a real indication that I'm actually retaining the hydration.
Yeah.
And it's also the minerals that are rich within that water as well. Yes, there is the higher pH that comes along with the byproduct of that electrolysis process. So around sort of 9 or 9.5 pH is kind of what I'm drinking. So that would be on that higher end of that alkalinity side of things. Yeah. But yeah, that's been an amazing journey as well to kind of, I guess, weave that in. So now every time clients come in, I'm always like, have a glass of water. And it's funny, often people come in because they've, drunk the water numerous times, and they'll bring their drink bottle and say, oh, can I fill up with the, the special water? Which is amazing, because I think that, if you're drinking something, you can kind of get that feedback within your body. I mean, that's a clear indication that your body's assimilating with that and going, yeah, hey, this feels really good for me.
Yeah. And I think general compliance with whatever is good for you is a key, right? Like, it has to be fun or something like that, or it has to feel good.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's unlikely that you will keep a regime going as good as it might be for you. I think it's such a win when you find something that's actually fun, or that your body says so strongly, I really want to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you can probably agree with this, both being in the Northern Rivers. I think we do live in a pretty amazing area where there are a lot of very health centered people. So a lot of people do want to learn more and further their health, and because we just naturally want to live a more vibrant and healthy lifestyle. And I think hydration particularly plays such a big role in that, because such a large percentage of the population is very dehydrated. And again, a lot of what I see in clinic is increased inflammation and dehydration within the fascia. So that's where that real hydration side of things for me became such a powerful addition to what I'm already doing. And then, further sinking into the education side of things with clients on that. And also, I think anything that I find that's been really beneficial for me, I always want to share it. And it's not to say that it's going to fit everyone, but I always like to share from experience as opposed to, just kind of sharing something that I haven't really experienced or tried myself. I feel that that's something that is a real value of mine. Yeah.
Part of dehydration might be also not only sort of the pH and that type of thing, but the additional things that you find in tap water. I had this conversation a while ago that really opened my eyes about public health versus personal health. And you would probably, people who are in public health start to understand, and some have always known, that there's a trade-off between personal health and public health. And so if we, like when it comes to town water, there's a real intent to make sure that the water arrives and doesn't get you sicker with like what are some of those
like chlorines, fluorides.
Those are the things that are in there
the E. coli
to prevent exactly.
Bacteria.
And I have seen it in New Zealand a while back, and some of the people I knew from that community got really sick because there's nothing in the water there. That doesn't justify in my mind that you just blank slap everyone with fluoride and fluoride, chlorine is probably the main ones, aren't they? Yeah. And so when you talk about dehydration, part of why we're dehydrated, I would probably guess, has also to do because we have to do something with the chemicals that come with town water, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also a lot of the waters that people are drinking when they're drinking directly from a tap, they're actually acidic. If you were to put a pH tester in it, you would probably see that it would either be borderline neutral or actually acidic. So if we're constantly throwing, and even a lot of the bottled waters, if you test them, they're actually acidic. So people are drinking this water to try and hydrate themselves because they're thirsty, but in actual fact, they're kind of almost dehydrating themselves, even more. And then, the other part is that it's minerals that are in the water. So potassium, magnesium, calcium, things like that. Like they're really essential minerals for us to like retain hydration as well. So a lot of waters can often lack a lot of minerals. So that's why people are putting, electrolytes and trace minerals and, Celtic sea salt and things like that, because they're trying to increase the minerals to help with that retention of their water.
That's a major difference, isn't it? Being born in Europe, well, at least in the mainland, we don't have fluoride and chloride in the water normally, but also they're normally aquifer waters that are hundreds of years old. There's just so much down there, filtered, and it's not rainwater.
Yeah,
rainwater, of course, would not have all these minerals in it, and that's what often. Well, it's certainly in, I think, US just as much as here comes from there, or even from sewage plants, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people up here in the Northern Rivers too, they drink a lot of tank water, and they think, yeah, I'm drinking tank water. It's really good for me. But often when I go out to people's homes and I set up these Kangen systems for them, one of the first things that we do is we test the water. And most of the time, if not all the time, depending on what their pre-filtration off their tank is, you actually need to add some minerals to that water. So we use like a pre-filtration system that actually has we call it like a H2 booster. So it's adding the correct minerals that enhance the electrolysis process for that water, because minerals are so essential for retention of the hydration for our system.
So it has a package like a full spectrum mineral.
Yeah, it enhances the minerals that are in that water. Yeah. So, for example, when you use electrolysis to, create that alkalinity change within the water and that molecular hydrogen, what happens is the water goes through the system. There's like 8 titanium plates in there. The water conducts with those plates, and it's the conduction is actually happening through with the minerals that are in it. So you get a negative and a positive component of a particular mineral. And this actually takes the negative out the top hose, which is what we drink. So that's that negatively charged alkaline water. And then it expels the acidic component of that. So it sort of gets rid of the positive charge out the secondary hose out the bottom. Yeah. So then people are drinking negatively charged molecular hydrogen rich water. Yeah.
Fascinating. Is that something that would have naturally occurred much, or is it something rare in I don't know?
So I guess like if we were to drink, water from a running stream, which is, it kind of creates its structure through that like vortexing process, through like tumbling down. It's collecting its minerals off, the rocks and that's within the water as well. So that's definitely a higher grade source of water, and what we, our body assimilates with, and what we once would have drunk just normally. And even though, there is access to spring water now these days, a lot of the time that's like it's being collected and bottled and transported, and it's often going under different exposures of heat through transportation and
UV treated.
UV treated and stuff as well. So, I think that, obviously town water and then some level of filtration is kind of the way I look at it, is like your baseline. And then it's really up to a bit of education and understanding of, if you want to really optimize, that's another part of your health that you want to look at creating some more optimization around. And there's over 2 or even 3,000 published studies now on the benefits of molecular hydrogen rich, water, or molecular hydrogen as a gas.
Solid.
I've even seen apparatuses now where they're actually inhaling the hydrogen too, because of the plethora of benefits that can actually have on our system. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. What's the investment for things like that?
The system that I'm involved with, they're just under $7,000. They're a Japanese, Australian dollars. Yeah. They're a fully Japanese built machine. So their technology is amazing. Their manufacturing quality is like, gold standard. It comes with a medical grade certificate water as well. And the thing is with these particular systems is they actually have the ability to create 7 different types of pH. So it's not just like drinking water. It's also a system that can create the other end of the spectrum, which is like highly acidic. So 2.5 or hypochlorous acid, which is like antiviral, antibacterial. So we produce that at home into a small spray bottle, and we just use that as a benchtop cleaner. So, you've got non-tox products that you can use then within your household. You can even use that to ingest small amounts if you've got sore throats to gargle. So the range of uses for it is pretty amazing. And really, like I sort of say to people, it's a one-off investment into your health. Like you look after those machines, and you've got a solid 30 years out of them as well, which is incredible. Yeah.
So when you imbibe that, when you would drink this type of water, and it changes the voltage of your cells basically to a more natural or optimal state.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, like I think like this is mitochondria health in a sense, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So molecular hydrogen is really powerful on mitochondrial health.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Right. And so if you think about muscles then, or all sorts of parts of the body, if the electricity goes up to a more optimal state, what do you find in your patients?
The biggest sort of feedback I see from people is they just generally say they just feel more energized and feel more hydrated. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing is, like, if we can be in a more hydrated state, for a large majority of our day, because we're going to constantly have stresses that we're under all the time. So let's give you an example. I drink my Kangen water really regularly, so my level of hydration most of the time is pretty good. Now, if I go and do some really high intensity training, I'm stressing the body. I'm going to have some increase in cortisol, and I'll probably have some dehydration that may come into play with it. And Jason and I have done this where we've tested the blood and go, oh, that looks, that's not looking amazing, but it's still not too bad because of where my base level of hydration sits. But then as soon as we drink that water and we retest it again, we see that sort of just, the improvement in it, that sort of the balancing and how quickly we can change that. So what we sort of look at then is go, okay, well, if we have the ability through this, amazing water to improve the baseline back really quickly again, then the compound effect of that, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, we can see how just straight away it just reduces the stress on the body and the cells. And I think that's where we're really seeing the power in it. And then, clients that have had systems for 6 months or 8 months, are constantly always reporting back going, thank you so much. I'm so glad, that I made this investment. Like, this is the best thing ever. And, between this and my sauna, it's like the two ultimate investments into my household. And
have you ever thought, angle on the electricity, electrosmog is a thing. And, I got introduced that, really in depth when starting to be engaged with clear saunas, because there was that they created the patents, which are used by everyone, so it's not something that they got to take EMF out of it, and later on, and that's something that people find too difficult to do, also the ELF, so the magnetic frequency and the electric frequency of infrared saunas, which is an issue in many, and you really want to get that down. Talking to you about mitochondria, is that where electrosmog, also from Wi-Fi, from potentially Bluetooth and other things, would be picked up by the body?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's a disruptor to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's not a positive thing. Let's put it. We're not in a field that actually helps us.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess that sort of then intertwines with that, like, oxidative stress. So we're constantly being bombarded with things, whether or not it's EMFs or light pollutions or things that are sprayed or whatnot. There's a constant bombardment of that. And that's where the water has this really amazing, what we call negative ORP. So it has a really high oxidative reduction potential. So it actually helps to protect the cells against that oxidative stress. So yeah, it's almost like having, superpower in a bottle.
So when you mix the two, so you go into a sort of positively charged Wi-Fi, for example, that would mean that your body overall creates more free radicals, right?
Yeah.
Meaning things that sort of get released. Well, electrons are negative, but you certainly have particles that are positively charged, which means they go through your body and actually cause damage because they interact with other things.
Yep.
When you then drink the water, you basically give the negative charge into your body, which prevents this from happening in a sense.
Yeah. So I guess it's adding a level of protection, but it's also helping to get in and quickly eradicate some of those negative charges from the positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's sort of again, that's what we're sort of saying. What we're seeing with a lot of the live bloods that Jason and I are doing, we're just seeing this radical change in what we can see in people's blood work, and it's like, Jace has been doing this for a long time, and prior to him having, I guess, exposure to this water, he sort of said, I might see like one really good sample out of 20 clients, 30 clients a week. And then I actually set a machine up at a retreat. Jace went up there to do the initial intake. He tested the first lady's blood, expecting, to see it not looking too great. And he's like, wow, this is actually, this is pretty good. Like this, considering you've just come to a health retreat. And then he tested the second lady, the third lady, the fourth lady, the fifth lady. And he's like, hang on a sec, what's going on here? Like these are almost like identical samples. Like this is amazing. Like what is going on? So, he said to the facilitator, like meditation's not going to create this change this quickly. Like what else is the commonality? These people have only been here for like 2 hours. What's going on? She said, oh, well, Joel came and set up this system and they've been drinking the water. And he's like, well, how much of the water have they drunk? And, maybe a few glasses within that period of time. He didn't actually see the system until Tiff said, oh, this is what it is. And he went, Kangen.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, cool. He's like, I've heard about it, but I've never actually tested it, under live blood. Jace was a really avid spring water drinker, and he would add ozone and vortexing, and he was, what he's like. So he would sort of, try and optimize his water as much as possible.
Yeah.
And he actually called me straight away. We left me a voice message straight after that and said, mate, I don't know if you've seen how this, water is interacting at a blood and cellular level. But he's like, I've just done these 5 women, and these are like, I'm lucky to see 1 in 20 like this a week. And I've just seen 5 perfect samples.
Yeah, right.
So we connected, we started to dive into it, and it was, and still to this day, 100% of people that we test, Jace pretty much tests all of his clients every week. He sees the same result. He just sees this drastic change, within a few glasses of that water. And we both really feel that it is a lot to do with that, the molecular hydrogen that it produces, but also the negative charge that sits within the water.
I remember meeting Clint Over, who discovered accidentally the whole earthing and grounding thing. He was into sort of broadcasting equipment and realized when he was grounded, which he needed to be safe, that certain things happened to people or reversed certain problems in the body. And I remember setting up a live event in LA, and everyone was grounded, so people would have a wristband sort of that was connected just to the earth. And to your point of the blood changing so much, we had some live blood before that, and then people going through the day being grounded the whole time, which is a negative charge that goes into the body. Exactly as you said, the blood would be more evenly distributed and would float around more. So it's amazing to have that without having to, the normal like stereotype thing is like go onto the grass or onto the beach, bare feet. But like the practicality of that is not always there. And yes, they have found some ways to do that, but that's where the water is, I guess. It's almost like a battery. You don't have to be connected to the grid, but you still have it there.
Exactly. And you've got, like we need water to survive. So we are constantly drinking it. So it's like, if we know that we need it to survive, like why not optimize our water into something that then actually goes from just being water to actually something that is like therapeutic water. Like every time we're drinking it, it is having a really positive effect, on our system. And I even just know from my family, like none of us have been sick in the last like 12 months, like not even so much as like a sore throat. And I really because the molecular hydrogen also is really powerful, isn't it? Helping from your immune system point of view too. I could talk for hours on this.
and people do. And I remember I did talk to a few people who said, like, look, there are a couple of things that they don't like about the Kangen. I'm just thinking I should put this in our offices. But what is the thing that people find hard about it or difficult to agree with? Are there any sort of main points there? I know in my industry there's certainly things that
I know. I think you're probably can relate to this too with product. I think a lot of the time you get the feedback on that or comments on that. I feel like it's actually a bit of misunderstanding or miseducation on a particular product. I think that's honestly the biggest thing with it. And it's also so when I set people up with systems, it's not just like, here's your system, plug it into your town water. I explain to them that the quality of water that's actually going into that system is also going to greatly affect
Yeah.
the quality of water that you're getting come out of that system. So pre-filtration is a really big part. So if someone's utilized a system, okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I've utilized a system before, right, that I thought was pretty good. I would now put that as the Toyota Camry. Okay. Then I was introduced to Kangen and I started using that system at the same time. And I was sort of testing the water on different things. I was using like H2 drops and stuff like that, which measures the molecular hydrogen within the water. And I realized that that was the Rolls Royce. Okay. But if someone sells you a Rolls Royce and you start putting E10 petrol in it, you're not really optimizing the Rolls Royce.
Right.
So that's the same sort of thing. It's like if you buy the Rolls Royce, you want to be making sure that you're taking that water, you're putting it through its, pre-filtrations to get rid of as much as the bad things out of the water that our body doesn't need, enhancing the minerals, because the enhanced minerals will really help with the electrolysis process. And the byproduct of that is therapeutic dose of molecular hydrogen rich alkaline water, which when you drink it, everyone just goes, that's amazing. It tastes so silky. Why is this so good? So yeah, I think a lot of the things that come with that is just the misinformation of it. And even with these sort of machines too, I'm like, there's a process, like every few weeks you need to do these cleans on the machines to keep the titanium plates nice and clean, because that's really important. Keeping the plates clean allows a better conductivity of the water too. So, if people have had a system and haven't kept it clean, well, they're not going to really be, benefiting. And that's the difference between a sauna that's $2,000 and a sauna that's $20,000. They might look the same if you look in the garage or someone's house, but underneath the hood, there's a huge, vast difference in the quality of things that are being used.
And it takes education.
To
make that clear.
And that's a really good point, because that's actually what I love most about it. I love the education side of things most. So I feel that the value that sits with me and how I sell the systems to people is I actually sell them through education. I educate the people on the benefits of it. Even invite sometimes people to, if they're in the local area, to come and do some live blood, so they really get to see it for themselves. And then any of that misinformation out there, they very quickly get to draw the conclusion and be like, okay, well, I've seen it firsthand, and that's enough. That's my social proof for me.
Yeah. So that's for us, the ELF and the ENF meters. So you actually measure things like that, and you can really see it firsthand, the difference there. Or you just do a toxicity test. But exactly. And you need to prove that. That makes sense. Like on this topic of education, we touched about it before we got online, and I felt that there was an amazing sort of insight that, yes, that you provide a service to relieve people of, and help people. It was all different ways of you actually working with the body, but there's also that educational piece to actually empower people to be more aware of their own body, or what you actually can do, give them tools. And I found that's also very different to, maybe there was a time like way back, where people said, just do a cold swim in the ocean and and then certain things, whatever, like these little tips. But I think it becomes much more common that people take responsibility and are open to actually change their behavior.
Exactly. And I think too, it's it just enables people. I think the more we are educated, the more empowered that we can kind of be. Now we get to choose whether or not we use that knowledge or not, but I think knowledge is power, and it's definitely power when you utilize it too. And I think that there's people out there. Actually, I'll give you an example. Like some people say to me, like, how can you make that change so quickly? And it's like, well, because I've practiced it for 20 years. Like it's taken me, that many repetitions of doing a particular technique, or seeing it time and time again in different patients, and knowing that actually I know that if I treat this particular component of this, let's call it the problem from now, I'm actually going to fast track the result of something else, down the line. Whereas rewind back, 15, 20 years, I might have still been fumbling around or creating something that might have taken me 3 or 4 sessions to elicit the same change that I can now potentially create within 10 or 15 minutes of a treatment. It's just that repetition. And I guess, what is it, 10,000 hours to mastery or something like that. So
I had mastery on my lips.
So I think there's an element of that comes into it. But also I also like to really sit in the position of still remaining the ability, even when you feel like you're at a certain level of mastery within your skill set, is to still remain a student.
100%.
Like I
Yes.
always feel like I can learn off someone, and that may even just come from me having a treatment with another great practitioner where I feel that shift or change. I'm like, wow, I haven't used that technique before. Oh, hey, that felt really powerful. I'm going to kind of weave that in and try a little bit of that myself. So plus it just keeps it fun and inspiring too.
I think it's a really important attitude to not think you're at the top of your game, can't get better, because at the moment where you say like you know it all, that means you're not teachable. I'm thinking about being a parent, and it's one of those things. There are some really good days, and it's like I nailed it. I just have to repeat that, but it's not as easy as that. And in the beginning of any career or any new task that you might have, you might have one skill which leans itself to the saying of like, with a person with a hammer, any problem looks like a nail, and maybe this is also the only thing they have. It's the only tool. It's like it's the nail approach. Like have to use the hammer, but after a while you become more nuanced, and you say, well, there are also the sides of the hammer where you can use it. Actually, I don't always have to use a hammer. There's so many more things that I can bring into it, and I think that's the beautiful thing about when you sit in front of someone who they have mastered a particular approach to fix something. There's so much nuance in it, and you can just see there's a breadth of experience there that can be all drawn in to tackling a particular problem. And often it's a little bit like Ollivanders in the one place, where he just starts with Harry giving him just a really, normal one, and another one, and then he's like, I wonder, and it's this like, yes, I have seen this before because I've done this for $10,000 hours. I know there's also another way to go about it, but it's a really unusual, or not so common. But then go that not so beaten path because it's really tailored for this particular problem. So I love the concept of mastery and being always a pupil as well at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I'm kind of in that a little bit now with the, obviously I've got, a really amazing clinic and it functions really well, and I've got amazing clients, but then I'm now sort of building up this sort of, secondary stream with the Kangen water side of things. And I guess now something that's kind of a passion part that's coming with that is that, I'm wanting to also educate other health practitioners out there to say, hey, look, we don't have to all do just with our hands. There is an ability here to create some diversification in what we do, but still really align with, the health and wellness side of things. But that also increases our longevity as practitioners, and gives us some, financial and time freedom and capacity to, to travel a little bit more or more time with your family, whatever those sort of driving vectors or that real strong why of why you're wanting to do that. So, Jason and I have been sort of running a lot of masterclasses around that and sort of sharing our experience as to why, we've sort of gone into this as well. Obviously, there's the amazing benefits of the water, but how we're also building a business alongside that.
Yeah, and that is important. I found, to me, commercial clients are very special because because it's part of your livelihood. Let's say, so selling an infrared sauna or something like that to someone who normally massages or likes to people, very like calmer customers or patients, just easier to work with or something like that. And they do the research like you did with Kangen, and maybe a bit of infrared saunas too. But we find that people really go deep. That's why they often come to us in the end, because we just stack up and that type of thing. But we also help them to really point out, sometimes before your session or after your session, you can offer this infrared sauna, even a half an hour, you can charge something for it. It's massive benefit for either your session is more effective and people use an infrared sauna. It's afterwards for them to calm down. It depends on what the modality is. But I think that's just smart because everyone wins. You can offer more, but it's also better for the patient.
Yeah. And it's like, like how do you even measure like a positive investment into your health? Yeah.
So the saying, like, when you're young, you have thousand goals. When you're old and sick, you only have one.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot, because to me, it means it should be now already a goal, because it means it's probably not an issue for much longer because I'm already focusing on my health.
And that sort of goes back to what we're talking about with that like health span and lifespan. It's like, I know, like, 40 years of age, 2 kids, beautiful wife. Like I want to be thriving, for as long as I can. And I'm lucky that I'm involved in a community called Method, which is an amazing gym with Matt Chaplin in Byron. And, I'm probably one of the youngest guys within that group. And a lot of those guys are, maybe 5-10 years older than me, but, they're all really healthy and driven individuals because, the health side of things and wellness is their real driving force, and they're active dads and things like that. So I feel like I've got a lot of great role models around me that I get to see what, when you make those positive changes or they kind of become your value set as you move on, I get to see that sort of fast forward of what that looks like, into that next 5-10 year bracket.
It's very beautiful to see, I think, people who have walked that path before you, because I think Chinese medicine talks about different phases of life. You learn, you practice, and then you teach. Normally it's like 30 years or something like that, in increments. And it's inert in people. It's in people. And I'm part of a network of businessmen and leaders, and most of them similarly 10 years older. And the amount of wisdom that I get exposed to is just that's such a privilege, and it also sets me up much better than I otherwise would learn out of, I don't know, probably books or something like that. I do that anyway, but it's very different if you actually hear someone, I've been there, done that. So
Yeah.
I totally relate to what you're saying there.
Yeah.
It's special. What do you think are the main issues that we at the moment as a society community facing, that where you have, well, I'm sure you have solutions to many things anyway, but like, what are the main things that you believe if people would address just that, they would have already a much better life? There must be some some topics that come up over and over again where it's like, I actually have quite a few tools that could have fixed this. Either mental information.
I think just the fact that I feel like there's just this huge collective of overwhelm and anxiety, if I use that as the word, but let's stick to like overwhelm. And I think if we just collectively can kind of sit in a place where we can know that like we are enough, like the way we are now, we're all enough. Like what we're doing is enough. Like we don't need to do any more than we are currently doing. And in fact, we can probably even do a bit less, and like we are still enough.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's just keeping it as simple as possible. And I think that's the thing is, with all this busyness that's going on in the world, I think that we are a lot of people, we are trying to turn back and go back to those things like, more time in nature, more time getting sunlight exposure, quality of water that we're drinking, time in community and being around good people and things like that. But yeah, we are enough.
Yeah.
We are all collectively enough.
Great. And I think, knowing your priorities comes into place. I know people that have such a health regime that takes 4 hours of the day. It's quite stressful. And at that moment, it's like, maybe it's better, to do a little bit less, but, be really aware that this is what you believe is the most important and essential thing for you, as you said, like exercise or just, movement in general and so on, versus thinking about myself. I got a list of books. It's only 1,500 books. So I will never feel enough until I say, there's a possibility that I will pick some of these, but I will never read that whole reading list that I've created. And still it goes, and I'm enough even reading none of them. Right? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Funny. What's the best advice you ever received, you think?
Best advice I've ever, I feel like I've received so much amazing advice over the years. I think just kindness is key.
Yeah.
And smile.
Yeah.
Just, when someone sees a smiling face, it just naturally makes them feel, better within themselves.
Yeah.
And just be kind, because I think a lot of the time, we can have interactions with people and we don't often know what's going on, behind the lens of the eyes. And I think if we just act with kindness, as much as we can, I think we're going to live a pretty good life with that.
Yeah, makes sense. Brings truth. If you could have a coffee or the Kangen water or whatever you like to drink with anyone, dead or alive, does anyone in particular come to mind?
Yeah, I'd probably have to say Kelly Slater.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, like being an avid surfer, but also I just think for someone that has had the ability to remain at the top of their game for so long, and I feel like, Kelly has done, so many of these amazing like health hacks or whatever term you want to use, or lifestyle choices. I feel like he was doing that, so ahead of the game before they became a thing, or before they became a protocol or whatnot. So I think it would be really interesting to sit down with him and find out, where some of the drivers were from him to be doing that from such an early age, in his career. And the fact that he's 52, I think, or 53, he won a pipe masters again at 50.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many sports people in the world that can keep that level of, optimization and drive and going. So yeah, Kelly, if you're available, love to meet you, man.
Jason might have an info.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Is there a biography out on him? I love biographies.
Yeah, there definitely is. I don't know the title of the book, but I mean, there's a lot of like little docos and short clips, and I think Jace actually even did like a little short YouTube video with him. So yeah, there's definitely some amazing insights into his mindset.
I put that on my list.
Yeah. But if you don't get to it, you are enough.
I'm enough. Okay. All right. Oh, that's good to know. Actually, talking about books, is there any particular book that you said would have had the biggest impact on you, or just a favorite?
Yeah, this book was given to me by it was actually my GP at the time, who, being very young in my career, he is someone that then kind of became a mentor for me and used to refer me a lot of clients. But he gave me a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma.
Yeah. That's
and then that kind of led me on a path of reading a lot of other Robin's books. But I actually feel that I reckon I was about 21 or 22. And I feel like that was the first little toe dip into a bit of, self-discovery, self-learning. Really powerful book. And the other one, which my mum actually gave me, was called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
It's great. Yeah.
Amazing book. And that is honestly one that you can go back and reread 10 times over. And at different stages in your life, different things will really jump out to you.
He had 7 kids, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've got 2 and I feel like I've got 7.
It's all about the depth. In my mind, it's not all about the quantity.
Yeah, that's it.
How did you start your day today?
How did I start my day today? So my little thing in the morning is always hydrate before I caffeinate. So I do enjoy my morning coffee. It's a bit of a ritual for me in the mornings. Like I'm generally awake at sort of 4:45, 5 o'clock most mornings. And that's really nice because there's generally still stillness within the house before the kids wake up. Beck, my wife, she is also a really early riser. So, and then once I've sort of had that coffee, I like to listen to some music or a podcast. Some days I feel like I'm in that learning space, and other days I feel like I'm just more in that sort of drop into some music. And then either a little bit of movement or food prep. I always prep my food for the day. So sort of high protein, fat foods that I take to work, because again, that nutrition is really important for me to be able to, sustain the level of patients that I see each day.
Yeah.
And then, often come to work and jump in a clear light sauna and have my breakfast and get some sunlight while I'm eating my brekkie, and then I roll into the day and again, love each day through my work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a good start. Joel, it was great to have you here. Let's quickly make sure that actually people can find out more about how to connect with you and also
sure.
what you're doing. What are some good ways?
So Instagram, my Myo, or my website is my-myo.com.au.
Can you spell both of those?
So my-myo.com.au for the website. And then my Instagram handle is my_myo.
Okay. Great. Yeah. And if people want to book a session with you, they can
either message me through Instagram or website's always the easiest. I am generally sort of 4 to 6 weeks in advance booked out. So I always say, just book whatever's available online. And then you can just leave me a little note to say, hey, Joel, I'd love to get in sooner if I can. Listen to you on the podcast, and I'll bump you up the wait list.
Very cool. And that's mainly in Byron?
Yeah, so I've got a clinic in Melbourne as well, but I purely only practice out of the Byron Bay clinic now.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show today.
It was a real pleasure, and I learned a lot, and it was just a real privilege to hang out with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Sebastian. Cheers. Thank you.